Yes, and with this, I ask Krenar
Good
to start
afternoon,
the
good
video.
evening. Welcome to today's Selective Data Transition Engagement webinar series. It's a pleasure for me to welcome you in this very important session. Today we will talk about beyond your core ERP transition, as we will talk about our HCM transformation. We will talk about typical challenges, best practices, and real-life customer examples. My name is Reik Boettner. I'm a consulting manager here at SAP, and I'm very happy to have our distinguished guest today to talk about our HCM transition. Let me give a short introduction. From SAP, we have Kirsten Boennen, we have Erik Doerr, we have Latiegue, and from our partner company, Natuvion, we are very happy to welcome Fabian, we are very welcome to welcome Nils Northe and Fabian Hildebrandt. A few topics before we get into. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask anytime. We will have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of it to answer most of your questions. So I would say, let's get right into it. First question, maybe Nils, to you. Looking at transition topics, what is the urgency for an HCM transition? Why would our customers have to move now?
Thank you very much for that question, Reik. When it comes to urgency, I think the best is to look at the maintenance tables, and you can see here the SAP HCM S/4HANA solution on premise and private cloud edition has been available since the October release of S/4HANA 2022. And for the most part, the HCM solution corresponds to the enhancement package 8. We have some innovations that affect the user experience and performance, and also the employee business partner is introduced. In other words, the SAP HCM for S/4HANA is the successor to the existing SAP HCM on ECC and can be used until 2040. Important to notice that the end of the maintenance of the existing ECC solution will be at 2027. And it's important here to act because as a corresponding transformation project must be carried out before the end of the maintenance. So if you are, as a customer, are an ECC system with your HCM, with at least enhancement package 8, then you have time until the end of 2027 to implement SAP HCM for S/4HANA. There's also the option of using the extended maintenance, so that the time to move to SAP HCM for S/4HANA can be delayed until 2030. And if you are already on S/4HANA, then and maybe you are in the so-called compatibility mode, then you should act quickly because the right to use the compatibility mode expires at the end of 2025. For RISE customers, we have an exception. Here the usage rights expire at the end of 2030, and the maintenance timeline depends on your underlying S/4HANA version. Fabian, is there anything else to consider?
Yeah, depending on the target solution, we will have a deep dive later in our meeting today. There might be some functionalities in HCM that are replaced by successor applications, and also some processes are discontinued in the new HCM for S/4HANA release. And this is basically an important point to look at when we talk about the urgency, because when a customer needs to replace that solution, there might be a pre-project that should be taken care of before the actual S/4HANA project or transition starts, because this can have reasons like there's a new business area that needs to take care of that new process, or even like trainings have to take place. Before the go live, of course, and this might be hard to put all together in one big S/4HANA transition project, and that's why it is advised to take care of these discontinued functionalities way before the S/4HANA project starts. And also, we have some little new functionalities in HCM for S/4HANA, and this might be also some kind of implementation case where a customer needs to do some kind of budget planning and also implementation planning to have these new processes and applications ready when the go live is happening. And also, of course, when we look at the timetable again, we don't have much time to react, to start the implementation project, and the closer we get towards the end of maintenance, the harder it will get the harder it will be to get an implementation partner for the project.
Okay, super. So here functionalities, processes, maintenance, and also getting experts like you actually for the projects are the key reasons. Okay, super, thank you. Next question, because I do hear sometimes we talk about SuccessFactors, we talk about HCM for S4. What are the go-to scenarios in our transition? What is the target scenario that we are looking for in our HCM transition? Maybe you can help us, enlighten us a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Reik. I can take this. Well, the strategy of ACP has not changed. So the bulk of the innovations in the HCM area are coming into the SuccessFactors solution. It's our cloud solution of ACP. However, ACP has realized that there are still cases or customers that required a bit more time to go to join into the cloud world. And for those customers, they are offering this S4 solution on-prem. That is what Nils and Fabian has talked till now on the maintenance timeline. And for and in these solutions, only the all legal changes applied for payroll or for social insurance topics will be still delivered. No? Also, all localization topics are still there, but the main focus on innovation will be on the SuccessFactors part. No?
Okay. So, but then what would be the reason? Why would I go for HCM for S4HANA rather than SuccessFactors? Or is there any preference in any case, in any scenario, where I'd say I go for this solution rather than for the other one?
Yeah, thank you. The most important reason is time. As we already heard, 27, the maintenance will end, extended 23rd, but it will end. So the customer say, okay, we go for the S4 solution instead of for the SuccessFactors solution, because the implementation time will be faster, much more faster. They can keep the tried and used things. They can keep their customizing, their processes, their own developments, and all this stuff. So, but of course, as already also mentioned before, we should not forget the long-term perspective implementing SuccessFactors. So to summarize it, SuccessFactors meaning get the most important things of the new developments of the, but on the other hand, you have to create a new architecture, you create costs, and of course you have to redesign your processes. Using S4HANA, it's much more faster, and you secure your investment, what you have done so far, but of course you're losing the new innovations.
As this session is also called Selective Data Transition, I'm wondering, how does the SDT approach reflect on my HCM transition? Kirsten, maybe you can help us get a little bit insight into that?
Yeah, of course you could just convert your HCM system to SAP HCM for S4HANA, but you have always to consider the simplification items. Fabian has already mentioned them at the beginning. So they are, for example, manager's desktop, recruiting, cost planning and training and event management. These items will not be available anymore in S4HANA and will be replaced by other solutions. So it does not make sense to keep this obsolete data in your future S4HANA system, and it's better to leave this ballast behind and migrate only the really important applications, functionalities and data which you will need in your S4HANA system. And so here we have the first example of SDT. Yeah? So we would migrate then only the data the customer really needs. And this has the big benefit. He can start with a lean and clean S4HANA system and also reduce the database size significantly. Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting, and I think very, especially in the cloud content today. But beyond the simplification items that you, or both of you already mentioned, are there any other criteria why selective data transition would be beneficial?
Yeah, sure. So what we see, customers use very often the selection criterion employee number or personal number. Yeah. They don't move all the employee data, they don't move all employees because after some years you have maybe some employees who have left the company already some time ago, and you don't need this data anymore. You can leave them just behind. And another point is, or the most common selection criterion is the time slice. What does this mean? Imagine some customers have meanwhile 30 years of payroll history in their HCM systems, and they don't need 30 years of history. They maybe need 5 years, the last 5 or 7 years for some HCM process like retroactive calculation or for benefit plans, and so we cut off the data and move only the last few years of history. And this is decreasing the size of the SAP HANA database really significantly, up to 50%, we can say, and this is a big benefit for the customers.
Okay, I understand. We also have customers that have very complex landscapes, right? Where we have integrated HCM systems. Is this also then the SDT approach applicable for those environments?
Oh yeah, this is a good point, because we see this very often, these combined scenarios of when the HCM is integrated in the ERP, and there we see that customers choose the greenfield approach for the ERP data. So they set up a complete new S4 structure for financials and controlling. They start more or less from scratch. On the other hand, for HCM, it's different. The same customers choose the brownfield approach for HCM. Why this? Because I think Hugo has already mentioned it. Customers don't want to lose the long-time investments. They have many developments in HCM, and for the customers, it's very, very important to keep this. And so they go for the brownfield approach, and we can combine this in one project, green and brownfield approach, and at the same time we can use the SDT for not moving all HCM data. As I said, 30 years of history is too much, but we can choose the last 5 or 7 years for the customer, and we can also select by the personal number. And this way you keep your HCM more or less the same. You move it more or less the same to S4. But on the other hand, you can reduce your data and make it more lean.
A good point to consider here is also that we support the customer to be compliant with the legal regulation of their country. No? If they need to keep only 5 years of the employee data, we can support them with that. But at the same time, if they need to keep the last 10 years or 15 years, we support them with these legal requirements.
Yeah, sure. And last but not least, we have one point which we need to mention. When we have this mixed brown and green field approach, then the HCM data, when we move the historical HCM data, we need to align this data, of course, to the new financial and controlling structure. Cost centers, for example, will change the controlling area. And this data is also in the HCM and needs to be aligned. We can do this with our tools and services by conversions, mappings, and we are very flexible and can add this to the project. Yeah.
Wow. So it's like the best of all the worlds. So we talked mainly about HCM and HCM for S4HANA, right? But how does it look for SuccessFactors? Is this also applicable for SuccessFactor migration?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
There's another example of a selective data transition. It's the move to the SuccessFactors payroll solution, Employee Central Payroll. And there you will migrate only payroll relevant data from your HCM system to the Employee Central Payroll Cloud. So this is another example for SDT based on one specific application, and when not all employees move to ECP, it's another example of a selective data migration based on master data, employee number or organizational units. And also for the migration to SuccessFactors ECP, the time slice is the most common SDT criterion. You normally will preserve only the last few years of payroll history, which you need for legal or audit reasons or for retroactive calculations.
We talked about what is the urgency, why do our customers need to move now to HCM for S4HANA or SuccessFactors? What are specialities on SDT? Maybe let's look into a project, a typical project. What is set up? What are the do's and don'ts? Maybe you can give us a little bit of insight into a typical HCM SuccessFactor transition in terms of SDT.
Yeah. SDT is normal IT project. It starts with the preparation phase, where you set up the project, make a kickoff meeting, try to introduce the project team, explain them the scope, starting with the timeline, telling the customer the requirements, what's the setup of the landscape, what you have to do, what are the RACI, which are the responsibilities of us, which are your responsibilities. And then you start with the project, and then you go directly to the next phase. It's so-called blueprint phase, where you design your scope, what needs to be transferred, how the setup of the landscape is in detail. You need a sandbox as a source system. You need a target system. The sandbox, the source system, should be typically a recent copy of production. Why? Because you would like to simulate the best quality for the migration. And then also in this phase, when you have defined the scope, it's very important that the customer starts to think about testing, because testing is here the key. He should, when we do a migration, we start from hiring to termination. Every process will be touched in such a project, so he has to think about to list all the testing scenarios, that he really have good testing, good quality of testing. This is done, we go now to the implementation phase. It's a bit different here in SDT or in migration projects. It's not called implementation phase. We have test cycles. We do the migration up to 3 times to improve the quality of the migration. And here it's really then it comes to configure the tools. That's actually the implementation. Then the migration will be performed. Afterwards, the customer has to test in what he defined so far. And then we do it, like I mentioned, a second time, maybe a third time. That's called try run. Then you really try to simulate the go live. Even that will be done maybe at the weekend, because the go live will be at the weekend. Why? Because very easy, you need a time when nobody is on the system, because otherwise you would create inconsistencies. Is the try run successful? Then you decide to do a go live, and that's normally like a normal test cycle. You do it at the weekend, and then afterwards sometimes you do the migration on Saturday. On Sunday, you then make the go or no-go decision after a short high-level testing, and then you are live. Maybe there's some post activities that you have to release the user again, you have to reschedule jobs again, but normally then you on Monday, the users are starting to work again.
Now that you already talk about the go live, is there any recommendation? What is better, like a phased go live or big bang? What is, from your experience, the better approach?
Yeah, that's a good question, because in the greenfield, what we heard so far, and on the ERP side, they really choose a lot of times a wave-based approach. Why? Because they say, okay, they go live with one company at time, then they stabilize the go live, then they go after some months to the second company go live and so on. Greenfield is a little bit easier because they really say, okay, we only take the history which is already closed with us, so there's no inconsistency possible. We in HCM, we are really relying on history because for auto calculation, so for us it's really important to make a big bang, that we have really consistent data.
Okay, so big bang it is.
Big bang is the key.
Okay, good. From your experience in these kind of projects, what are the typical, like really sticky points, the critical points where a customer has to focus on and be aware of?
Yeah, mentioned before in our schedule description, testing is the key because imagine when you do implementation of a model, then you test the model. Because we may create the whole HCM system with all the processes, testing is the key. They has to test everything. And what they should avoid, it's a customer said to me sometimes ago, live testing, meaning do the testing after go live. That really run into problems. Why? Because when you do such migration and the customer starting to work on Monday and work 2, 3, 4 weeks, it's not possible to roll back again. We must be sure when we do the decision, we go live on Sunday, that everything is fine. So testing is the key.
Testing. Big bang testing, okay. From a duration perspective, typically what is I know it always depends on the complexity and the number of data, but from your experience, ballpark figure, how long?
Yeah, also the typical project duration is between 9 and 12 months. Of course, we have sometimes 6 months, sometimes longer. It depends, especially when we have integrated solution with ERP. The ERP implementation is greenfield implementation, so it's a leading implementation. So we follow their approach, meaning if they took longer, of course, we have to align in this longer period of implementation. If they are quicker, we are also quicker. But if we have a standalone system, we do SDT, normally between 6 and 9 months, it's possible and realisable.
One question I also regularly hear, is there any requirement to have the go live towards the year end?
Yeah, in ERP, it's again the relationship to ERP. They try to do the year end because the business year ends in December. And for HR, it's really almost impossible. Why? Because HR has the most work year end business at the end of the year. And all the payroll stuff, all the social security stuff, everything will be done end of the year. And because of this relation to payroll and social insurance, there are a lot of support packages coming in the end of the year, so-called Christmas packages. And for that reason, it's very important, try to avoid doing a migration go live in HCM to the end of the year, because it's a good point. Normally we said it's not problem during the project duration to do upgrades, implementing new support package, no problem at all, it's important, but at least between dry run and the go live, you should avoid such upgrades. So, and when you have done the dry run November and try to go live in December, you need this December support package, and then it's really a problem. So, of course, we do it, but to minimize the risk, we recommend the customer not to do it at the end of the year.
Oh, okay, good to know, thank you. Yeah, you already mentioned it here and there a little bit, but now also to prepare mentally, physically for our customers to prepare such a project, what are the typical customer tasks that our customers need to focus on, need to ensure that these are well fulfilled and executed? Maybe you could highlight the key 3 topics.
Yeah, sure. So basically, a customer is able to prepare a lot of things. We will talk about 3 of them, which from our perspective the most important ones to be well prepared. Also, when a customer wants to start a project and is looking for a service provider that wants to do the project with the customer. And these three topics are the simplification items from the readiness check. We have heard that one before. Kirsten has talked about it. I also talked about it at the beginning of our session. And we have the migration scope. When we talk about SDT, Selective Data Transition, then it's also important to know what data I want to leave back behind and what data I want to bring with into the HCM for S4HANA system. And the third one is basically the third-party tools. This is some point we come across a lot of times that for HCM a lot of third-party tools are used by the HR department, and this is important because not all third-party tools are supported under or in S4HANA with HCM, and it is important that the customer scans what kind of third-party tools are used, and they can probably contact the third-party companies and ask if basically the tool is S4 ready, basically, and also if there are any kind of activities that should be done before or later, or that is basically it. And we have talked about the simplification items. We have a lot of discontinued applications where we basically have not even a successor application or process, and this is basically something that can bring complexity into the project. And for this, I've talked about it earlier. It might be necessary to have pre-projects to basically do the budget, resource, and implementation planning. And also some special, or not so special in the S4 world, but it was always one main component of HCM. It's basically the front end setup, the front end strategy. The employee self-services are important for HCM and for the HR department. And it's important to visualize the front end strategy and to match to optimize it, because there are some changes happening in S4HANA. And of course, another thing is where the customer can support or can prepare some information. It's basically the transaction and functionality usage analyzers. There are some transactions and programs that can be started way before the actual project starts, like 30 months or even more. And these analyzers basically collect what the customer is using in their production system. And this helps really a lot also for brownfield conversions, but also for SDT projects. So the implementation partner knows what kind of application data could be left behind or should be taken with. And this basically are important activities the customer can take care of.
Okay, so simplification items, third-party solution, migration scope. When you talk about front end, you talk about Fiori, right? This is the strategy of how to set it up, how it looks like, what the customer or the end user eventually uses. Need to be clear on the strategy there. Going out of the session, what would be now the next 3 steps that we would like to give our customers, our listeners, our audience here, what they should do now after this session?
To summarize it and to talk about the next steps. The first point would be to set up an appropriate HRIT strategy. So it's important to have a clear picture of how you want to set up your system landscape. Do you want to use H4S4 on-premise. This is now secured at least until the end of 2040. How important is the switch for you to the private cloud or the public cloud? How important is the new functionalities for you that come with SuccessFactors? How quickly do you want to move towards the public cloud? You should have clarified this before such a project in order to set the right course for you. Also important is to align with your ERP colleagues on what their roadmap looks like. If I'm running HCM embedded, this will happen, yeah. But if not, then you should talk to each other. For example, if the ERP colleagues clean up the system, as Kirsten already mentioned. When switching to S/4HANA and work on objects such as company code, cost center, other financial accounting objects that are also used in HCM, then of course something needs to be done on your HCM system. And this is due to the interfaces of the between the systems. So best is to set up an overall roadmap with ERP, with parallel projects and year-end activities and so on. Yeah. And then you will be prepared for that. And the second topic would be to carry out a readiness check or a readiness assessment as early as possible in order to be able to estimate what you have ahead of you. Yeah. And you can then estimate how long the project will take and what challenges you will face. Yeah. You will clarify what budget you will need. And yeah, this will give you greater transparency and enable you to plan the move to S/4HANA. And the last thing, because of the timetable that we have seen at the beginning, there is more and more pressure coming up to move to SAP S/4HANA. And our tip is to reach out early to an implementation partner who will assist you in your journey to SAP HCM for S/4HANA, rather on-premise, in private cloud, whether in hybrid model or not, to be sure that your project can be delivered before the end of the maintenance.
Thank you, Nils, Kirsten, Erik, Roche, Fabian. Thank you so much. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate. Now's the time to ask. We have a dedicated session now for your questions, and we try to answer all the questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for this talk. And we have a couple of questions in the chat, and some of them we were able, or our experts were able to answer in writing. And now, as we are opening Q&A part, I will ask our experts team to take over to moderate the question that we already answered and those who are there. And some of the questions seems to be more complicated. So I would probably ask Reik to take over here.
Yes. Thank you, Larissa. So let's start with the questions that were not answered because either we have some questions on the ask or they require a little bit more time. I hope everybody can hear us properly. So let's deep dive into the first one. There was a very specific question on the Irish payroll solution, if there's any extended maintenance on the Irish payroll, if it's different to any other region. Maybe a question to the team.
Probably I can take that one. For the payroll localization, for the standard localization solutions, there is no change in the maintenance that is offered for them. Also, the extended solution or extended so the official support of the payroll and the S/4HANA. It's like it said until 2040. No? So I don't see any specific here. At least there are any special part, but it's not in the standard.
Okay. Thank you, Rohan. We had another question on the technical approach for SDT. So what is the technical approach for SDT? Yeah, from the companies. I don't know who wants to maybe take the first step at this question.
So I can take the first step.
So the SDT community with which you are talking here, or from which comes this presentation, consists of different companies. This is CBS, the S&P, the SAP, and Natuvion. And we all have a similar but also different approach doing that. So in general, we can't give an easy answer here, but I think Erik can clarify how technically we are doing it, because we are all having a similar approach in that case.
Yes, exactly. Actually, it's very simple. We are migrating data on table level. Very easy. We take the content of one table and put it to the target table. Why we are doing that? Because normally if you do such a migration, you do it at a weekend, and copying data table-wise is very efficient, very quick. It's the only possibility that we can migrate a huge amount of data at one weekend. So, and all the tools are working that way. I mean, the consequence would be that there is no checks. It's not like a LSMW where all the checks of F4 helps and values will be checked. We're really copying the data, what is in the system on the table to the target system. That's very important to know. Also shit in, shit out. Answer that the question, or do we have more questions about it?
For a moment, no comments on that, and I suggest you continue with the questions that are in Q&A tool.
So the next question is a little bit longer, but let me take the time to read out the full question. It was mentioned in the recording that an option to create the new system would be recent production copy. I struggle to understand this approach, especially in HCM. I see one reason why customers would decide to go for selective data transition is it also get rid of historical configuration. This seems to be challenging based on a production copy. Perhaps the understanding is wrong. Yeah, would be great to understand and deep dive in this question. So is it also meant to selectively choose configuration?
I think this question consists of two questions. I mean, one question is copy of a recent copy of production. Okay. That's maybe a misunderstanding. Of course, when it comes to the go live, we take the production data, no copy of that. That's clear. But imagine during the test cycles, we normally have 3 test cycles where we do the migration, or we test migration, and then we would like to keep the test environment or the migration environment very stable. So we present an empty target, and we have a recent copy of the production. Nobody else is there. So, and to get all the possible technical issues, we would like to have a most recent copy of the production system to test the migration. Because imagine the copy is 1 year old, that means that 1 year missing of data maintenance, of configuration, of repository is missing. And when it comes to then to the go live, we maybe have not tested before certain applications and read wrong. Therefore, for testing a recent copy of the production. But of course, in the go live, in the last migration, we take the production system. That was one part. The next part was why customers should go for SDT. I mean, one reason you really quickly or concretely said is because to get rid of the historical data, but that's only one part. Imagine a lot of customers deciding at the moment to go for a greenfield for the ERP system, and saying, okay, for HR, the code line is more or less the same. We don't want to change anything. And if there is already an integrated system that HCM is in the ERP, or maybe based on the license model, they decide to remigrate HCM and ERP again back in one system, there's no possibility to copy something or create a shell or whatever. The only possibility is accept a greenfield approach, that you do everything from scratch for HCM, to using the selective data migration to make a greenfield for finance, for controlling, whatever. And if they are done, we migrate the rest in a selective data way out of the out of the HCM system and remigrate it in the new ERP system. And that's the most common reason to use this approach. Was that correct, Roman? Understandable, not correct. Understandable?
Yeah. Erik, there's also maybe to you, Erik, or the round, right? There's a new question in sort of like a follow-up question. Don't you think copying tables could create inconsistencies in the target environment?
I think I had it said very simple, no? In my last sentence, shit in, shit out. But to be honest, when we are talking about 1-2 terabyte systems, there is no other chance than copying table on table-wise on database level. And normally that's the reason why we do it 3 times. We test the migration 3 times. And okay, maybe you can take me wrong, but the tools are very old and they're very mature. They copy it in the correct way. The only issue is, or the challenge is, when you define upfront the selection criteria, that you may select something what you or deselect something what you may need in the target system. But that's the reason why you have the three test migrations, and normally after the 3rd test migration we catch everything.
Yeah, and we are doing these migrations already for more than 20 years and have set hundreds of customers go live, and yeah, so the system works.
Yeah, just to bring another aspect, so simplification list or things that are not available anymore in the future. So this is something that we analyze and define at the beginning of the project. No? So any of us, and will avoid or try to reduce any risk for inconsistency in the future system.
That brings me to a very good, that brings me to another argument to use SDT. Okay, even we don't want to do a new implementation, greenfield for HCM, some of the customers would like to make a high-level redesign to get at least to clean up the system, get rid out of old data. It's not only old data in the sense of historical, maybe also data which are not used anymore. For example, what Northe said, simplification list. Imagine you're using the old recruiting module. You remember the PB module, PB tables. They are not working anymore. So we don't need them, so we don't migrate them. Or there are maybe modules which may exist in the future, but you already migrated them to SuccessFactors or to other cloud solution. So a lot of customers using this SDT also to clean up the system. And of course, as said in the presentation, we can convert, we can map, we can also do a slight high-level redesign of processes if needed. Especially, and it's a good example in the S4 migration, in the S4 world, normally customer has only one controlling area. In the old world, there's more than one controlling area. Then we can merge these things also on the fly. No? That's all these are arguments to do SDT.
Okay, thank you, Erik. Let me reiterate to a similar question to what we had before, but thank you, Roman, for posting this. Roman wrote, I hope that the session will provide more details in tools and technical support provided for SDT and HCM. Are there such tools which help customers and partners to execute this SDT, especially in case of a history cut? For example, automating data adjustments if a hiring date is 30 years in the past and organizational management assignment 30 years old have to be adjusted to only 5 years. So are there any specific tools for customers or other partners? This is how I understand the question here. So not the partners from the SDT community, but also other partners or customers directly are there tools, right? This is how I understand this question. Maybe I take this. I take this one. So the tools, methods, approach, process what we use here are very specific to this partner community, right? We might use here and there a different tool, but the approach and the outcome is very similar. This is nothing that can be executed independently without any of the partners here from this community. There is SDT, Lean SDT standard tool from SAP, which was launched last year. There will also be some simple HCM cases to be executed, but it always depends a little bit on how complex, how big your systems are, if this tool is applicable. There was a session earlier in the series on the BTC solution, right? This is the same standard tool, standard solution that can also be used in the future for HCM migrations. But again, for very simple, for simpler scenarios, and depending also on the system size and also your current state of the system, right? What enhancement packages, etc. you have. So for a little bit more difficult approaches, you would have to contact one of the partners here.
Especially, Roman, as you mentioned it briefly, or was another colleague in the session, we can raise a lot of inconsistencies doing so. So the tools, what is provided for the partner, are so secured that the system will be kept afterwards in a real consistent situation or status. That means for us, our tools are much more flexible, but of course we have, like Kirsten said, experience when we do such cutting or renaming or mapping or setting something, we convert something like you described in org management or so on, then we know from our experience the consequences. And therefore, the standard tools will not allow such things because the risk is too high to get the system in an inconsistent status. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, checking. So there's another question in regards to replication from SuccessFactors. Am I correct saying that all the customizing for the replication from SuccessFactors Employee Central into SAP ECC goes untouched into S/4HANA? I mean, are there no efforts for such a migration, or are there efforts?
Okay. We migrate table-wise. So normally such configuration tables we take one-to-one. If they are on the standard, you have nothing to do in addition. But if you change the standard, of course you have to check it. No? And what you meant with the configuration, you talk about when you download the configuration file from SF to configure the mapping. Of course, it needs to be stable, otherwise it will not work, of course. No?
I think this was a follow-up. We have custom fields in EC. I think there was a follow-up specification, Erik.
We have what?
Custom fields in.
Yeah, but the custom fields are also, it's really a little bit complicated. We cannot communicate synchronously, you know. If the custom field needs to be mapped to a field also in SAP, it could be a custom field or it could be standard field, doesn't matter. And even custom fields or custom tables we migrate, that's not the issue. The only thing is you should not change something in the configuration of Employee Central when we do the migration of the in SF or into S4, sorry. Don't you think copying tables could create? Okay. We recommend it.
Okay, let me go to the next question.
Yes, please.
I think this is on copying the data into QSS. After the implementation, we periodically need to copy employee data to a QA system for test purpose and so on. So we regularly need a tool to do that, usually a partner tool. In ECP, can we implement this kind of tool, or SAP does not allow and has a service for this to do so?
Yeah, Kirsten.
Yeah, I was just answering. So I don't know if this is the same who asked this question, because I already answered this a few minutes ago. So there are two notes. I can share them maybe later. And these notes are telling you which third-party add-ons are approved for ECP. EC Payroll is a public cloud, and therefore not every tool is allowed to be there. And but in this note, you can check if the add-on or the tool which you are currently already using in ECC is also approved for ECP. If not, I suggest that you contact your third-party provider and ask him to start this approval process, because there is an approval process, and the provider, third-party provider, needs to contact SAP, and then it can get approved, and or not, depends on the colleagues. Then you can also request the import of this tool into ECP.
Okay. Yes, he said he will check the note. Okay. We have another question. Yeah, sorry.
It refers again to the EC fields. No, by the way, employee group and subgroup are not standard. That's true. They are not standard fields, and of course, a lot of customers would like to use them in Employee Central. So, but even there, again, in the end, you map in the info portal part the EC fields to the SAP fields. And if you map them to the employee group and subgroup in info type 1 and be copying table by table, there's no inconsistency.
Thank you, Erik. So look a little bit at the clock and the question. This might be the last one. I need to double check. Another question from Roman. Do you recommend any checklist to ensure system consistency before SDT? Do we have any checklist to check the system?
So Larissa would like to answer this question, or is it only just like that? Okay. Yeah, so we normally recommend the customer when we start the project to, especially to reduce, to check this housekeeping reports. No, so they are also to reduce the amount of the data or inconsistencies in the system, or the payroll runs in test modules, no, that are also taking a lot of space in the database. These kinds of housekeeping reports, and they are should be, let's say, run regularly in the system. Once we do the first analysis, and you will recognize some of these tables with a huge amount of data, and these kind of things, we address to this. To these nodes and to these activities, and some of these reports also checked for inconsistency in the system. We have some additional specific reports or analysis that shows or highlighted inconsistency between tables, like employees that were never really hired, but the process started at one point of time, or inconsistency between info type 3 and 1 and other, or 0, that are, but not the standard reports, that are specific checks from our side. No? Now speaking from ACP, but I'm sure, every company may have similar checks at the beginning. From the standard, I don't have a clear list of this, but there are these housekeeping reports.
And again, thank you all. That's another argument for use SDT. That you, when you have the list of employees which are inconsistent, we said, okay, give us a positive list of employees to be migrated into the new S4 world. Even you would like to migrate all of them, we recommend that you give us the personal number list, because maybe you will get rid of some inconsistent personal numbers. That would be also killed by this approach instead of copying the system or upgrading the system.
Okay, super. We are reaching the top of the hour, in the end of the session. If I see correctly, I think we have answered all the questions. I don't see any additional question. Larissa, then I would hand over to you unless you tell me that I overlooked maybe one question.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you to our expert teams. It was really great collaboration. And great thank you to our participants for being so active on bringing up these questions and actually leveraging the very rare possibility to interact with the experts directly. Coming back to Q&A tool, I assume that the questions that are still there, but they were answered, right? So they are okay. All right, then I think we are very well in the time for the participants. If you happen to have a question, feel free to contact me so I can direct it to the experts. And the recording and the materials of today's session will be uploaded on our YouTube playlist. The link to the playlist, I've already posted it in the chat. And so feel free to refer to this session and also listen to the recording in case you think you missed something. Yes, the recording will be available maybe in 1-2 days. It usually takes some time from the technical perspective. So again, thank you very much for being with us. We continue our move to Cloud ERP webcasts. There will be scheduled for February, announced end of this week. And as always, I will send you links where to meeting requests to block your calendars. So I hope you will join us. There will be more to come. And by the way, if you interested in selective data transition approach, please refer to our playlist. We have conducted 5 sessions on various aspects of selective data transition. There is more information there available, so please feel free to leverage this opportunity and get knowledge from our playlist. With this, again, thank you very much. Enjoy your day, evening, morning, depending on where you are. And we hope to welcome you in one of our upcoming webcasts soon. With this, thank you very much and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, bye.